Without warning, it attacked. The anaconda wrapped its massive coils around the girl. There was no chance of escape. The snake squeezed the girl to death, then proceeded to swallow her whole.
They found her, they killed it, they cut it open, and sure enough they found the little girl in the stomach of the snake.
That was the largest snake I had ever seen. It was at least 45 feet long.
45 feet is a giant snake, and it's just what Rivas is looking for. From this town, it's an hour's drive to this remote ranch called El Cedral. This will be Rivas's base of operations. Because anacondas can thrive on both land and in water, Rivas has a plan to search both for the elusive giant snake. He's pioneered a low-tech but daring technique to search for these predators, feeling for them with his bare feet. He'll also be armed with motion-triggered cameras and the latest military-grade sonar to help him peer into deeper waters. Existing evidence of giant snakes is sparse. One of the earliest and most famous accounts comes from British explorer Percy Fawcett, who in 1907 says he encountered a 62-foot anaconda in Brazil. Later expeditions came back with fantastic stories of killer snakes. But more recently, this series of photographs surfaced on the internet. They appear to show a man swallowed whole by a giant python. But are these photos hoaxes or real evidence of giant man-eating snakes? Experts will analyze this evidence.
If you look at the ribs, they are facing towards the back, and that would be consistent with the snake swallowing towards the tail.
The pythons in these photos are native to Asia and Africa, but there could be thousands of them right here in the United States, specifically in the Everglades of South Florida. This will be the site of another monster quest expedition. With more than 1.5 million acres of wilderness, this is a perfect hiding place for giant snakes, as seen in these shocking pictures taken in 2005. You can see a 13-foot Burmese python split almost in two after swallowing an alligator whole. On the upper right is the snake's head. On the left, its tail. The alligator's tail protrudes from the snake's ruptured belly.
To look at an animal, for instance, like a python feeding on an alligator that it would not find in its normal habitat, shows that the animal would adapt to what's available to it. A snake's digestive systems are incredible. They can digest almost anything.
And evidence suggests that these eating machines are on the move. This is also a Burmese python, and it's invaded this man's suburban Miami backyard. His struggle with it was captured by a local news crew.
Fearing for his exotic fish, the owner and a friend jumping into action, trying to pounce on the python, but charming this snake didn't go so well.
It was no isolated incident. Just a few days earlier, this python was discovered nearby with a swollen belly. What turned out to be a 15-pound pet cat named Francis. These incidents are becoming so common that Miami-Dade County now has an emergency unit to respond to such calls. It's called the Anti-Venom Unit.
This is a big problem here in South Florida. And these are big snakes that can hurt a young child as well as a teenage boy or even a full-grown adult.
Handling these snakes is dangerous, even for professionals. How did pythons native to Southeast Asia end up in these Miami neighborhoods?
For many years now, these snakes have been very popular pets.
Ron McGill of the Miami Metro Zoo has been studying Florida wildlife for nearly 30 years.
The unfortunate thing is they purchase these animals when they're hatchlings or newborns in pet shops, and they look very manageable.
But when pythons get too big for their cages, owners release them into the Everglades. And in 1992, when Hurricane Andrew hit here, destroying homes and pet stores, hundreds of young pythons escaped into the wild. Nobody could have predicted what happened next.
Because of our climate, it's so conducive to these animals when they are released or they escape that they thrive. Not only do they thrive, they reproduce.
Just how many pythons are now living in the Everglades is unknown. But there's no question the number is growing.
A large constrictor can have 50 to 60 live babies that are on their own. So really, I don't see a way short of a long, deep freeze in South Florida where these animals are going to be eradicated.
McGill has evidence that this new population of snakes are about to become giants.
This is a 20-foot skin of a reticulated python that washed up on a beach in Miami. An animal that started out as a pet, but now is indicative of a problem that we're experiencing here in South Florida. And the South Florida environment is extremely conducive to the growth of these snakes. It's a warm, humid environment, has an incredible prey base, whether it be raccoons, possums, waterfowl, and quite supportive for snakes reaching maximum size.
The implications to people here in Florida could be lethal.
A snake this size in a residential area can pretty much prey on anything he wants. This snake could kill me that fast if it wanted to.
Wildlife biologist Joe Wasilewski is no stranger to giant snakes. In 1989, he helped capture this 22-foot python, the biggest snake ever found in the United States. Now he's going to lead a hunt here in Florida to find a giant even bigger than that. Wasilewski believes that giant snakes are thriving in the Everglades and may start crossing into residential areas. Now he's looking for evidence. But snakes, even giant ones, are elusive. First, he will set up motion-sensing cameras.
You know, this is actually perfect. If I were to be a python in this neighborhood, this is where I'd want to be. Nice shaded, houses all over, Everglades right there. This could be the spot.
The place he's chosen is the border between the Everglades National Park and the densely populated suburbs south of Miami.
They'll be going from point A to point B. And if there's any movement in front of this camera, it will catch it.
Now he'll drive along this boundary in search of evidence that full-grown pythons, upwards of 20 feet, are in fact leaving the Everglades and invading these neighborhoods.
If the pythons are in the Everglades, it's just a matter of crossing a road to get into these urban areas.
Will Wasilewski find the giant snake he's looking for?
Yeah, wait, hold on, there's one.
In South Florida, there are signs that dozens of neighborhoods around Miami could be under attack from giant killer snakes. Experts point to these photos as evidence. They were taken by a wildlife researcher in the Everglades in 2005. They show a 13-foot Burmese python which appears to have burst open after swallowing a 6-foot alligator whole.
Snakes' digestive systems are incredible. They can digest almost anything. People speculating, well, that the python just exploded because the alligator was too big. That's really not the case at all. What most likely happened is that this alligator was swallowed. Either a claw or a tooth or something caused some type of perforation in the python's gut, caused an infection which led to the death of the snake.
If pythons are growing large enough to swallow alligators whole, then they could be a threat to people living nearby.
A python that gets to any significant size in a place like the Everglades will feed on any warm-blooded mammal of any size that it can kill and swallow. They can adapt, they can branch out, they can be found in suburban areas.
A 2007 U.S. Geological Survey reports that as the Earth continues to warm, to California. Joe Wasilewski thinks that's happening already.
We really could be on the verge of a real epidemic with these pythons. Just because you don't see them does not necessarily mean they're not here. What it does mean is they're hiding pretty good on us. It's been dry for the last few months, up until a couple nights ago we got some really good rains. And with the rains coming in, it sort of wakes all the wildlife up. Right now is the perfect time to look for pythons.
1,000 miles away in Venezuela, anaconda expert Jesus Rivas is about to begin his search for a giant snake. This region of South America is a hotbed for giant snake sightings. From neighboring Brazil came one of history's most widely cited encounters. It came from this man, Colonel Percy Fawcett. On January 7, 1907, Fawcett was on assignment with Britain's Royal Geographical Society. He described the encounter in his journal.
We were drifting easily along in the sluggish current when there appeared a triangular head and several feet of undulating body. It was a giant anaconda. I sprang for my rifle and, hardly waiting to aim, smashed a .44 soft-nosed bullet into its spine. We stepped ashore and approached the reptile with caution. As far as it was possible to measure, a length of 45 feet lay out of the water and 17 feet in it, making a total length of 62 feet.
This drawing and Fawcett's account are the only existing evidence of this giant snake. In his search for new evidence, Jesus Rivas will use cutting-edge sonar imaging technology, originally designed for the U.S. Navy to detect suspicious divers in restricted waters. The device is called the DIDSON, or Dual Frequency Identification Sonar. Ed Belcher and his team at Soundmetrics in Seattle, Washington, designed this device.
This is an acoustic camera. It uses sound instead of light to generate an image.
Rivas will encounter zero visibility conditions in his search for a giant anaconda. This device will be his eyes underwater. Belcher places a brick in the tank and clouds the water to demonstrate the DIDSON's imaging capabilities. To the naked eye, the brick is invisible, but the DIDSON sees it clearly.
Now, this brick is only about 4 feet away, but in Venezuela, while you're looking for snakes, they'll be probably 30, 40 feet away, and we'll still be able to see those snakes.
Once Rivas finds a snake, he'll be able to measure it to see if he's found an actual giant. Sonar has never been used before to search for giant snakes, and what Rivas finds could raise the evidentiary bar. Joining Rivas on his expedition are his old partners, Victor and Ramon. They'll be setting motion-triggered camera traps, but they must first track down bait to lure the giant snakes. For that, they'll need to collect musk from another anaconda. Musk is a mysterious glandular excretion that Rivas believes could attract other snakes.
Nobody knows what the musk is for. It could be for defense because it's very stinky, but also it could have a social function, attraction.
Ahead, something in the road catches their eye. It's the track of an anaconda.
I can see the print of the scales here. Dirt in this side tells me the snake is going that way. And because of that print size, I can tell this snake was about 8 to 9 feet long. When I see a track this fresh, I know it's only an hour or two old. So this anaconda has to be nearby.
Anacondas inhabit shallow swamps where they stalk their prey. 5 years ago, this particular swamp was the site of a near-fatal attack. This man, Jose de Esteban, is a cowboy at El Cedral, the same ranch where Rivas is based. He is one of the few locals to tangle with an anaconda and live to tell about it. De Esteban had heard a report of a large anaconda by the roadside. and went to investigate.
I was out there looking for one, and I saw it, on the ground. And without even thinking, I bent down to see it closer, and before I knew it, it got me.
De Esteban struggled to keep the anaconda's coils from wrapping around his body. After nearly 5 minutes, he finally wrestled himself free. The team begins their search in the same swamp where De Esteban was attacked. They can't see them, but they know that anacondas are here. In their hunt, they use only poles and their bare feet. Rivas's unorthodox methods have earned him the nickname the Barefoot Biologist. As he searches, his only safety net is his instinct and experience.
This water is not very deep. If I catch an anaconda in a water that is too deep, she might have the upper hand. I don't want that. There's a snake here, not a very big one. There's another one right here. Kabong! Victor!
These anacondas are too small for musk extraction. But there's evidence that a bigger anaconda could be nearby.
This is a crack right here. It seems like this anaconda will be about 9-10 feet, maybe that big around.
Despite the fresh trail, Rivas cannot find the snake. The team is losing daylight. The pressure is on. Rivas discovers something, but it's not an anaconda.
Not a snake. Not what I want to find.
It's a small but very unhappy crocodile. The day seems all but over. But then, a discovery.
Oh, it's very strong. For a small snake. Now this baby is actually putting the squeeze on my arm now. If it's any harder, I wouldn't be able to withstand it.
This feisty anaconda is just right for Rivas to extract its musk. At first light, the team will set the camera traps and test the sonar.
I can see how fat he is.
And in Florida, a monster quest demonstration goes terribly wrong.
He's got me.
Snakes have been the object of fascination and worship throughout history. From the pharaoh's tombs of ancient Egypt, to Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god of the Aztecs, to the Naga, a mythical river serpent in the Mekong Delta of Southeast Asia. 2 million snakes are the embodiment of evil and a source of paralyzing fear. That fear is very real in Venezuela and in Florida, where there could be evidence of giant pythons and anacondas. And 2 expeditions are underway to find them. In South Florida, the investigation is tracking escaped pet pythons that have for years been thriving and growing in the seclusion of the Everglades. But there are signs that they're now invading suburban neighborhoods. Captain Ernie Gilson with Miami-Dade's anti-venom unit has seen it firsthand.
I've been doing this for 9.5 years, and we're getting more and more of these calls for recoveries every year. We foresee in the future that we will definitely see larger snakes, more calls on these larger constrictors than we have in the past.
Come back around.
The calls that we are receiving, they are a lot of large constrictors, 7 to 10 to 12 foot long. This year, I expect it to get worse.
Captain Gilson and his partner, Captain Chuck Seifert, agreed to demonstrate for Monster Quest how they capture these deadly predators. This is a 10-foot python caught on a recent call, and it's not happy. They try to subdue it by covering its head with this bag. But this python is intent on escape. They need to act fast.
He's pissed at me.
And as a last resort, Gilson abandons his tools for his bare hands.
Maybe I can get him to chill.
He needs to sneak up behind the snake, then grab it right below its head to stay clear of its jaws.
I'm gonna walk around this way, since he's fixated there. Come from behind him and grab him. He's got me.
The snake bites Gilson, clamping down on his wrist. He has no way to break free.
He's got a good hold on me.
Can you push it in a little bit?
Nope. He's got the vein, dude.
The snake is coiling around their bodies. Seifert has to use brute force to pry the jaws open, tearing the skin from Gilson's wrist.
Yep. He got me good, dude. Go get it, Ace. Yep. Yeah, it hurts like heck right now. They got real sharp teeth. As I approached him, my mistake was I didn't grab him close enough to his head. When I did grab, I slid back, and he was able to circle around and came back on me and bit me in the arm. And as you can see, they got a full mouth of teeth. He got me with his inner and his outer teeth.
As Gilson discovered, a constrictor's jaws are one of nature's deadliest contraptions. Both pythons and anacondas have 6 rows of razor-sharp teeth that curve backwards like 100 individual fishhooks. The more the prey struggles, the deeper the teeth sink into its flesh. This snake was 10 feet long, hardly a giant. But if it was a giant, could it have killed and swallowed Gilson whole? Monster Quest has compiled this photographic evidence from the internet that suggests it could be possible. No one has come forward to say where and when these pictures were taken, but many are convinced that they are evidence of giant man-eating snakes. Now Bob Henderson and Ron McGill analyze this evidence.
In looking at this image, if you look at the ribs, they are facing towards the back, and that would be consistent with the snake swallowing from the head being this way towards the tail.
As demonstrated here with this python feeding on a dead rabbit, the head is the most compact and manageable part of the body for a snake to get its jaws around. That's why snakes always swallow head first. The same would be true for a human victim.
Now, what allows the snake to open its mouth very widely are special bones that it has back here. It's called the quadrate bone.
The quadrate bone at the back of the skull allows the jaws of the snake to drop straight down to open unusually wide. Then the separation between the 2 bottom jaw bones allows the mouth to expand even further, to 3 times the width of its own head. But Henderson isn't sure the snake in this photo has swallowed a person.
Just based on the size of the person and the fact that it doesn't seem to have any particular bruising or anything like that. Everything looks just very, very much intact for it to have been the victim of a snake attack and to have been ingested by a large snake.
A snake swallowing its prey is a slow but violent process. A snake has no limbs to push food into its mouth. Instead, it has rows of curved teeth that move independently, pulling the prey little by little into its stomach. The condition of this body appears inconsistent with that of a snake's victim. While we can't definitively say that it's a forgery, it does give us pause. This photograph, however, seems to tell a different story.
Now, this photograph here is more indicative of what I think could easily happen.
If this is the shoulder here and the arm here, this would have to be the head.
This photo was taken in 1995 by a policeman in Malaysia. He claims it shows a man lying face down with his head in its mouth.
I think the snake could have a real hard time getting around what looked like they might be fairly broad shoulders.
prey species would bleed a lot from those wounds. And here you see that this snake has struggled. It has tried to go back and forth, trying to get over those shoulders, which is spreading this blood, spreading this injury.
Once the snake swallows this man's head, the shoulders could prove to be an insurmountable obstacle. The average width of an adult's shoulders is about 2 feet, but if the snake could get its mouth around the shoulders, nothing could stop it from swallowing a person whole.
A 30-foot python probably has the ability to open its mouth 2 to 3 feet wide. This would lead you to believe that, yes, it could swallow an adult human being. The best place to find these monster-sized snakes is going to be in the remotest areas of the world.
Back in Venezuela, Rivas extracts the musk of the anaconda he caught the night before. He believes the musk could contain pheromones that will attract other anacondas, hopefully a giant.
So maybe if this musk has a social function, with the camera traps, we might be able to find bigger, better, more anacondas.
Rivas positions and aims the cameras using the onboard laser sight. Each is equipped with a motion-sensing trigger and a flash. These cameras will capture whatever crosses their path, day or night. Now the team will test the sonar.
Cool. I can see him. I can see his arms, his feet. I can see how fat he is. Let me measure how fat he is. Almost half a meter. To lose some weight, buddy.
After the tests, Rivas heads into the field. This will be the first time such technology has ever been used to hunt for anacondas, and it could lead these researchers to the discovery of a lifetime. The biggest snake Rivas has found here was 17 feet. Could an even bigger anaconda, a giant, be lurking beneath these waters?
Ooh, there's something there right in front of us. That looks like a snake. Look, look. Aguántalo, aguántalo. It really looks like a snake down here.
Around the world, legends are told of giant snakes measuring 150 feet or more, half the length of a football field. Anaconda expert Jesus Rivas and his team are on the hunt for just such a monster snake in Venezuela. On land, they've baited and set motion-sensing camera traps. Their search now moves to the water.
If an anaconda grows to be too large, it will be limited to deeper water. That's why I think that in these places, I might be able to find larger animals.
Visibility under this water is almost zero. But here, the Ditson sonar sees everything.
Oh, there's some fishes. A whole bunch of fishes, look. Alright, piranhas.
Then something much bigger appears on the sonar.
There's some shadow here. And I see the bubbles right in front of me. I'm trying to see it under the water with the sonar.
What Rivas sees is the outline of a crocodile. And it's huge.
I can actually measure how big it is. It shows now about 3.5 meters long. That is 14, 15 feet long. Big girl.
Rivas continues his search for a giant snake. If he finds one, he may have to jump in to catch it.
The water is anywhere, I'm thinking, above my chest. It might not be very wise of me to get into the water. If the water is shallower, then I might have to give it a go.
Suddenly, a promising shape appears on the sonar screen.
There's something there right in front of us. Ooh, that looks like a snake. Look, look. Echada para atrás un poquito.
Rivas abandons the sonar to search for the snake by hand. But he can't feel it.
Adelante, Victor.
What Rivas saw on the sonar was the dense aquatic vegetation on the river bottom, not a giant snake. The sun is setting, but he is undeterred. Like the sonar, anacondas can see in the dark, and they will remain active throughout the night. Back in South Florida, where the search for a giant snake continues, the day is also coming to an end. But that could be good news for biologist Joe Wasilewski.
As the sun goes down, the roads stay warmer, the snakes, pythons in this case, will begin to migrate across, and that's usually when they move is right after sunset and into the night.
His search begins to look even more promising.
This really is a good road. It's sort of secluded. There's a little bit of an orchard here. There's some nurseries, there's homes, and this is really perfect to find a python.
His intuition is right.
There you go. I think I see something. Yeah, wait. Hold on. There's one.
Wasilewski finds a wild python that most likely escaped from the Everglades.
Oh yeah, I got it. Well, that's no one. It's about 8 feet long and about as mean as a python can be. I'll tell you what, if this were one 15, 20, 25 feet in length, there's no way I could get it off. The power of these animals is just absolutely amazing.
Out of the Everglades and into this residential area, this python could prove deadly to anybody it encountered.
If this one were to coil around someone's neck, this snake could actually choke off your trachea and your esophagus and you could not breathe. Believe it or not, a snake this size.
The escalating presence of snakes this size could mean there are even bigger snakes migrating out of the Everglades.
The big ones are out there, there's no question about it. But your chances are, if you see a python, it's going to be one around this size, simply because of the numbers game. There's hundreds of this size to 1 or 2 huge ones. We think it's a young population, and in the next few years is when they're going to start getting to these really massive sizes. But could be right now. We could see a big one tonight, tomorrow.
A storm rolls in, and the rain puts a halt to Wasilewski's search. But the camera traps he said earlier could provide what he's hoping for. Evidence of a giant snake in these neighborhoods. And back in Venezuela, Rivas presses on through the night and is startled by what he sees next.
Oh wow, there's a big guy right here. Right ahead of us, right there.
Could this be their giant? In the wild plains of Venezuela and in these South Florida suburbs, evidence of giant snakes exists. In Venezuela, this cowboy narrowly escaped with his life. And this man says his 13-year-old cousin was swallowed whole by a 45-foot anaconda. In Florida, escaped pythons are invading neighborhoods, feeding on pets, even taking on the authorities sent to capture them. So far, no one's ever been killed here by one of these escaped pythons. However, these photographs prove they've become giants, large enough to swallow alligators whole. And these photographs, widely circulated on the internet, could be evidence that they are man-eaters. Although they can't be authenticated, experts agree it could have happened.
I think if a 30-foot constrictor, an anaconda, a python did exist and it did come across a human being and it was hungry, there'd be nothing that would stop it from swallowing that human being.
History is filled with accounts of giant snakes, some over 150 feet in length. Can science...
As hunters, in water or on land, snakes are silent and efficient killers. A rattlesnake has more than its bite to work with. Its tongue constantly tastes the air, scenting for prey. Its body senses ground vibrations, even the footsteps of a mouse. Standing still is no defense. The rattler is also able to sense body heat. Infrared heat, detected by sensory pits on each side of the face, pinpoints the prey. Their high-tech weaponry has been around long before ours. But in any combat situation, defense is as important as attack. This military training ground is home to two other opponents. The rare red-cockaded woodpecker lives in this loblolly pine. Its enemy is a corn snake, whose tactics are to climb the tree and steal the woodpecker's chicks. The bird's defense is to peck at the tree, releasing its resin. But how can resin repel this relentless invader? It's getting close. Will the woodpecker's weapon really work? The resin goes into action. Seeping between the scales, it irritates the snake's skin. Woodpeckers won, corn snakes nothing. Australia, home to the most venomous snakes in the world. In these cane fields lives one of the most deadly. But why do snakes need venom? This inland taipan is hunting rats. The cane fields are alive with them. But they are dangerous prey. Rats can bite back. A snake's head contains all its sensory equipment: eyes, taste, smell, brain. And the head is vulnerable. It bites and retreats immediately. The head is undamaged, and the venom is doing its work. The rat is now paralyzed. The snake can safely approach its prey. Venom gives the snake two huge advantages. It not only kills the prey, but by the time the snake begins to swallow the rat, the venom has already begun to digest it, breaking down cells in the body. The venom in a baby snake can be even more powerful than the adults. This young cantle viper is luring prey with its worm-like tail. The frog is deceived by the enticing movements. Unaware of its lucky escape, the frog remains convinced there is a worm there. Amazingly, the frog seems unable to see the snake. The venom acts quickly, subduing the frog. The young viper catches mainly amphibians, but as it grows older, the chemistry of its venom will change to suit other prey. Donald Stridham works with South African snakes to understand how venoms affect the bodies of prey animals and how the venom is delivered during a bite.
The snake that I've chosen here is a puff adder, and they've got the very long front-hinged fangs with a cytotoxin, a cell-destroying venom. I'm going to very carefully open up the snake's mouth and show you this mechanism. The snake doesn't like its mouth to be open. It's much like you going to the dentist and having your mouth prodded into. Now the fangs lie against the palate of the mouth. So if I just open there, you can hardly see the fangs. But if I now slip my stick just behind the fangs and get them forwards, you can very clearly see how they hinge. Now the fangs are covered by a skin sheath here. I'm going to try and slip this sheath up so that one can see the naked fang. And there we have one fang nicely exposed. These fangs are hollow. They work like little hypodermic needles, so they inject venom through the fang into its victim. And in fact, you can see a tiny droplet of venom on the one fang there. You know, the venom glands of a snake are very similar to the saliva glands in a human, in that if we have a dry mouth, our body very easily reproduces saliva. And the mechanism with a snake is almost exactly the same, in that venom is never easily exhausted. Under normal conditions, the snake is never without its venom.
A gaboon viper produces venom in huge amounts. It's a large, fat-bodied snake and needs to have a lot of venom to subdue large prey quickly. The viper is too slow to chase its victim. To inject such large quantities, the gaboon viper has the longest fangs in the world. Each is almost as long as a human thumb. That's quite a bite. Even a smaller bite is no fun. Venom is breaking down the cells inside this man's punctured leg. He's not feeling too bad now, but measurements show his leg is swelling fast, a sign that the snake injected a potentially fatal hit of venom. Blood vessels are rupturing. Fluid is accumulating as tissues break down. Only the correct antivenom can stop the process before vital organs are damaged. Antivenom is a specially prepared fluid, a serum containing antibodies, proteins that will neutralize the venom in the snakebite. The patient has survived the night, but the tissue damage continues for a while. There is still venom present. Although snakes are not trying to kill us, it's worth knowing how some of them bite.
The next snake that I have here, it's Africa's most venomous snake. And this is a boomslang. It has drop for drop the strongest venom of any snake in Africa, more so than a black mamba or any of the cobras. Most people think that a black-fanged snake can't bite onto a large part of your body. Most people think that the boomslang can only latch onto your earlobe or small finger. Whereas you can see here, this is not true, in that the whole head of the snake is divided in half by its mouth. And they can open that mouth up to about 120 degrees. And with the mouth that wide open, they could very easily bite you on the flat of your hand or the top of your leg, wherever it pleases. If you were bitten by this snake, you would literally bleed to death. So what's going to happen to you is that you're going to bleed into your heart, into your stomach, into your bowels. You're going to be urinating blood, defecating blood, and it's really a horrific way to die.
This poor frog is about to be the victim of a vine snake in Central America. This snake is also back-fanged, just like the boomslang. Fortunately for small prey, death comes quickly. The venom of some snakes with fixed fangs attacks the nerves.
Now the front fixed fang snake that I've chosen is a snouted cobra here. These fangs are much smaller than the front hinged fangs of an adder. Those fangs don't have to fold backwards. You see, they remain erect in the mouth. So the snake merely has to snarl its mouth and so inject its venom. And sometimes a mere scratch is enough to kill you. The neurotoxins would interfere with the neural communication system of our body and paralyze the vital organs, so the heart or the diaphragm muscle, and one would die from asphyxiation. You literally cannot breathe and possibly die of heart attack.
In most countries where people face a daily risk of encountering snakes, wood piles and exposed trash heaps are surprisingly common, yet all can encourage snake trouble. Wood piles provide shelter for snakes, and trash attracts rats. What better prey is there here in Africa for a black mamba? 6 feet of powerful hunter, it haunts the outbuildings and can strike like lightning with a quick-working venom. To a black mamba, this bungalow is just another place where food may be in good supply. Inside, Tony Morgan confronted an uninvited guest, and it bit him.
This is a typical corner that snakes like to hide in, and it was a similar corner like this near my front door on the farm that I found a mamba all curled up here with my fishing rods and various things like that. And as I don't kill anything, particularly snakes, I grabbed this particular implement and I thought that I hooked him out and I thought that I'd pinned him down. Unfortunately, he was able to stretch quite a bit and he got me just below the knee with one fang. I then lasted exactly 30 minutes. Anne, my wife, got me down to Donald's place very quick. And then he took over and drove me down to the hospital, where we were fortunate in finding a doctor on duty. And 30 minutes after the bite, I said to him, I cannot exhale anymore. And he said at the same time, which I didn't hear, his heart has stopped as well. So in effect, I was dead at that time.
Bill Haast in Florida is the kind of person to whom Tony Morgan owes his life. But collecting venom to make anti-venom has almost cost Bill his own life.
I was bitten by a cobra and ended up in a respirator. I had stopped breathing. I was bitten by a mamba in the leg, a king cobra bite in the knee. Well, my blood pressure went to 0. But the most recent one was a canebrake rattlesnake. A couple of months ago, I got bitten on the back of the hand. That was almost pure carelessness.
Bill, who's nearly 90, milks venom into a collecting jar while he gently squeezes the venom glands. But how has he survived 168 bites? The answer may be quite natural. The South African Cape cobra, a highly venomous snake, is prey to meerkats. But why are meerkats apparently unaffected by frequent cobra bites? They seem to be immune. Perhaps the frequency of such bites is a clue to Bill's survival.
Back in 1948, September the 18th to be exact, I started immunizing myself with venom from the Cape cobra of South Africa. I diluted the venom 10,000 times and took 1/100th of a milliliter. Then I graduated or increased the dose over months and then eventually years, added different species until now, on usually once a week, I take a booster and it's a mixture of 32 different species. So I know that got me through a lot of these bites, at least over the threshold, if not in most cases, saved my life.
Snakes and humans share the world uneasily. This spectacled cobra is common in the paddy fields of India. Every year, more than 10,000 people are killed here by snakebite. Antivenom is unavailable. For the same reason, snakebite is a major killer across Central and South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. It's hard to arrive at an exact number, but at the lowest estimate, 50,000 people die each year. In South Africa, Donald Stridham is answering an emergency call.
In this part of South Africa, we have a lot of venomous snakes. People are active in the field here. They often come across snakes, they find them in their houses, and that's when we are called out. Seems to be the place over here. Lots of people standing around there.
A snake in a house is a cause for local excitement, but the occupants have already followed the right emergency procedures. Everyone has left the house, and they've not only closed the door but sealed it as well with a towel. Donald can be fairly sure that the snake is still inside.
What I'm going to do here is have to put a visor on, because in a situation like this, it's very possibly a spitting snake. So I'm just going to get a few things that I need here. Yeah, there's really a lot of hiding places here. The snake could be anywhere. This is really, yeah, it's a bit dark in here as well, so one's going to be really careful. Just take care where you walk over there. You take it easy. There are places around here where it can easily just spring out on you. So if you guys just stay back a bit there. I'm going to have a look in these dark areas. I need to stay in the open area of the floor, because I suspect it to be behind things around like this here. Oh, that's clear. You know, we could so easily find a mamba in a place like this. And these things are like coiled springs. I mean, once it feels that it's not hidden anymore, it could just come flying out. You see, these are perfect. You'd find rodents here as well. And this is what the snake is probably looking for. Or to just trying to hide from the disturbances outside, possibly. You know, this whole area is really, really good. Look at these mats under here. No, nothing there. You know, I don't know, sometimes they even find an escape. They could actually maybe even get out from where the door was plugged out there. It could have pushed past there. But I think we just maybe should carry on looking. You know, it could also have climbed. I mean, these walls are pretty rough up here. I think to take a look somewhere up here. Nothing there. Oh, yeah. Whoops. There's something up there. There's something in the corner over there. Yeah. Okay, without a doubt, that's a mamba. It's a black mamba. There's a piece of coil just around between the roof and the wall there. We know that mambas are very, very poisonous. I mean, if this bites us, we're quite far from a hospital now, so we've got to be really, really careful. And if you can just stay in the furthest corner away from me there, just out of my way, I'm going to bring it down and just get it straight past you outside, and then deal with it, get it into the bag. Okay, it's trying to edge away from me there. It heads out again. opening up its black mouth at me. It's warning me. And it's interesting that the snake doesn't just come out attacking, but at this stage, having it like this, it obviously feels threatened. At this stage, it'll bite whatever comes near to its mouth. And that's, it's a big snake, bigger than I thought. It's a long animal. Just watch it behind me there. Please don't just come any closer than that. You know, the snake's obviously hyped up now, and whatever touches it through the bag, it's going to bite. And you can see through the bag here. I'm going to just pin it down to the side, make sure that it's safe in one area, and then I'm going to release the head. Just take care, they don't come too close. Now, you just touch that bag and this thing bites. I'm going to find a safe place to release it. Let's get it in there. And I think I should go and reassure the lady here that her house is clear of snakes and that it's safe to go back in again.
Housewives in India are troubled by snakes as well. The men of Vrindavan have also made a profession out of removing them. He's not going to let this cobra go free. For hundreds of years, this has been a village of snake charmers. The snake is captivated by the swaying pipe, following every rocking movement. And that's the snake charmer's secret. The music plays no part. It's probably too high a frequency for the snake to appreciate. It has no eardrums. Sound vibrations are perceived only by way of the skin, muscle, and bone. Bites are a routine hazard for charmers, but they have a special snake stone, which they believe can magically draw venom from the wound. Survival is most likely to depend on the snake only biting in defense, using little or no venom. Also, the victim himself may have received many mild bites in his lifetime and developed some immunity. But the piece of soapstone is the treatment they believe in. This baby cobra in Africa is one snake that no snake charmer would ever use. It threatens the civet cat by standing tall and looking big. But it has another weapon. This is a spitting cobra, and it sprays venom, which irritates the eyes of the attacker. It's not lethal, but it works. South America, the Llanos of Venezuela, the wetland home of the largest snake in the world, the anaconda. This giant has no venom at all. To capture prey, it relies on muscle power, coiling around its victim and squeezing the breath out of it. And a large snake needs large prey. The biggest rodent in the world fits the role. A capybara, the size of a pig, is fairly easy to ambush as it bathes in the warm waters. The snake must have teeth strong enough to hold on to such lively prey. and be ready to loop its body tightly around the capybara to avoid being bitten or scratched. The anaconda, the most powerful of constrictors, moves in.
Look out, Jimmy. Hold that head, hold it. Mike hears Jimmy's cries for help. Jim is black in the face, almost done for.
To be safe, the actor needed to know exactly how a large constrictor kills, just as Donald Stridham does.
I caught this snake on somebody's farm. It had eaten something really large, and the farmer was worried it's going to eat his dogs or even maybe his children, which isn't totally unrealistical. Have a look at that. Yeah, it's getting me around the arm here. I can really feel it. You get this area here. I mean, you can see how it's stopping the blood supply there. And this is my arm, so I mean, I can handle it. I can wrap it off me here. But can you imagine that around somebody's neck? I mean, that's pretty tight over here. This movie that we watched, we've just seen it with this Jimmy, where it had wrapped around him. It wasn't totally wrapped around his neck, not like the way this has got me around the arm here. With Jimmy, I could literally see that he turned around to get this python around his body, and it wasn't a natural constricting pose. Whereas this snake has got me. I mean, look at that. My arm's going quite red there. You know, if you try and make a plan here, really got me. One thing I got right in the movie was that the python, like many other non-venomous snakes, are ambush animals. They will lie in ambush for their prey. It'll lie there, wait for the animal to come past, strike at it, bite it, and hook it with those 100 needle-sharp teeth. It then throws coils around this animal while it pulls the animal into the coils. It then asphyxiates the animal. Every time it breathes out, it tightens more and more, and the animal dies of suffocation. If one looks into the mouth of this python, you can see a little circular tube, and that is the extension of its epiglottis. And it's very useful for a snake to have this, because what happens is, when it swallows, that'll extend right out of the mouth, and so it can still breathe while it's got a full mouth of antelope. I think the snake deserves to be released now, so not to stress it too much, I'm going to release it here in the bush. And this looks ideal here. And as soon as I let the head go, that's it, I can feel the coils have immediately relaxed on me there. And the snake just wants to get away, straight into the bush there. Wow, look at that arm. This arm's gone really quite red there. What a relief to have that off. This is great. I love letting snakes go back into the bush. It's such a nice feeling. You can do something for them as well. It's a nice feeling for me, and hopefully for the snake.
Back in anaconda country, there's someone who's trying to do good things for them as well. Anacondas have killed and eaten people, but that fact does not deter Maria Munoz. At the ranch of El Cedral, the petite Maria is on the track of her favorite animal. She works with her assistant, Ramon. A snake longer than 10 feet always requires 2 people for safe handling.
¿Cuántos machos tenemos? How many males do we have?
It's the breeding season for anacondas, and Maria recognizes this group as small males. She hopes they will lead her to the much larger females somewhere nearby. The males are placed in bags to keep them out of the way.
Bueno, burbuja.
The female they find is 13 feet long.
Voy.
Maria uses a trick to calm it down.
No.
She dips its head in the mud so it can't see.
She's very quiet. Y le vas a poner en la cabeza. Beautiful.
For several years, Maria has been studying how anaconda populations here live and vary.
The tail. I would like to know if new one or she had a mark. Let me see the cloak. Good. It's a new female for us. That means there are more than 900 anacondas, green anaconda in this ranch.
Before Maria began her work, no one knew how many anacondas could live here. Now, by taking blood samples for DNA, she is also getting some idea about how they are related. But of course, she still needs to know how long these giants are. Her personal best is nearly 20 feet, about 10 feet short of the world anaconda record.
Yeah. ¿No se sale?
No.
These are the heaviest snakes in the world, but this one is a little lighter than the 485-pound monster in the record books.
44.45 kilograms.
Some snakes, like this South African tiger snake, not only constrict their prey, but are also venomous.
I've got the tiger snake's favorite prey. It is a striped skink. Now I'm going to bring it in closer, and you're going to notice that the tiger snake will bite and poison its prey, also wrap around it to constrict and kill. Now this is of course a dead skink, so I'm going to move it around so that the snake thinks that it's alive.
The tiger snake's venom is weak, so it needs to grip the lizard firmly, not only to prevent escape, but to limit the risk of damage to itself during a struggle. Even more remarkable is an African egg-eating snake's ability to get its mouth around an egg. All snakes can eat meals bigger than their heads. They simply open very wide, and then ligaments allow the lower jaw to expand. Still, the egg cannot be crushed until it reaches special bones in the spine, which can pierce the shell. For convenience, a snake does better to eat another snake. A king cobra is called king because it's a snake eater. The mangrove snake it's attacking is only mildly venomous. No match for the king. It's not easy for the king to judge exactly how long this meal is. But since the king is the largest venomous snake in the world, chances are the victim's tail will be reached easily and swallowed. It's good to be the king. So how would a snake avoid this fate? One way would be to play dead. This eastern hog-nosed snake is giving his best performance. Its play acting must convince a threatening indigo snake. There is an interesting moment of standoff, but the actor has another defensive card to play. A gland in its tail emits a smell of death to go with the gaping mouth. It's the performance of a lifetime, and the enemy is fooled. A snake that looks dangerous can keep predators away. Red next to yellow will kill a fella is a useful rhyme about a coral snake. It is venomous. Red next to black is a friend of Jack is true for a milk snake. It mimics warning colors and only pretends to be dangerous. A pretend head keeps the real head of a Calabar ground python safe. The real head has a tongue that gives it away. But the deception can be good enough to cause a predator to attack the tail by mistake. And a tail is not a vital organ. Often the brilliant colors and patterns of a snake's skin are not a warning but a subtle camouflage, matching its surroundings. And to us, it can look beautiful. Scales come in endless varieties of shape and structure. In the wild, snakes are not easily seen, a useful quality which suits these masters of ambush perfectly. But the beauty and subtlety of snakeskin has also been their undoing for thousands of years. Fire is traditionally used by hunters in Cameroon to expose the hiding places of aggressive rock pythons. Entering an aardvark burrow to retrieve so vicious a snake is a risk few men will undertake. Once, this nightmare task was a test of virility, a rite of passage. Crawling inch by inch on toes and fingers, the hunter moves toward the angry python. His companions keep track of his progress. They may have to rescue him. The heat is stifling. The hunter must squirm back through dust and biting ants, dragging 100 pounds of python. His companions take over. These are the last of the python hunters left in Cameroon. Firearms have made it easier to kill other animals for food and skins. But the meat on this snake in former times would have been essential, and its skin a profitable result from such horrific effort. As any snake grows, it must shed its outer skin like an overtight suit. The new scales revealed are at their best. The cast-off skin is discarded, and with it also go most of the parasites that have attached themselves to the snake. The regular shedding of dead skin has special significance for rattlesnakes. Each time a rattlesnake slips out of its old skin, its rattle gains another section at the base. The rattle is a series of loose-fitting interlocking scales that, when shaken, produce a sound that warns large animals not to step on the snake. Although only a warning, the rattle has been the snake's downfall. Their noise makes them easy to locate, and as a result, tens of thousands are killed every year.
I hate rattlesnakes.
J.P. Jones sees rattlesnakes only as potential killers of people and livestock. He's hunted them since he was a boy, but recently he's finding it harder to find them. He simply can't hear them, even with the listening apparatus he designed himself.